The glittering spires of New Geneva sparkled in the afternoon sunlight, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Dr. Elena Reeves stood at the window of her office in the United Earth Government headquarters, her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the first Zephyrian ship had appeared just 1 year ago. "Dr. Reeves, the Zephyrian ambassador is ready for you," her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Elena took a deep breath, smoothing out her crisp blue uniform. As Earth's chief xenodiplomat, she had been at the forefront of humanity's first extraterrestrial contact. The Zephyrians, with their advanced technology and seemingly peaceful intentions, had been welcomed with open arms. As she entered the conference room, Ambassador Zalthran rose to greet her. His iridescent scales shimmered under the light, and his 4 eyes blinked in their unsettling, asynchronous pattern. "Dr. Reeves, always a pleasure," Zalthran said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native tongue into smooth English. "Ambassador, thank you for meeting on such short notice," Elena replied, taking her seat. "We've received some concerning reports from our outer colonies. There are rumors of Zephyrian ships acting aggressively towards our settlements. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, but—" Zalthran's upper eyes narrowed, a gesture Elena had learned to interpret as amusement or condescension. "My dear Dr. Reeves, I assure you there is no misunderstanding." The room suddenly plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. "What's happening?" Elena demanded, rising to her feet. Zalthran remained seated, his scales now pulsing with an internal light. "What's happening, Dr. Reeves, is the next phase of our plan. Your outer colonies aren't just facing aggression. They're being systematically dismantled." Elena's blood ran cold. She lunged for the door, but it remained stubbornly sealed. "Why?" she managed to choke out. "We've shared everything with you. We welcomed you. And we thank you for your hospitality," Zalthran said, his voice dripping with mock sincerity. "You've given us access to your systems, your defenses, your weaknesses. Humanity has proven to be a fascinating study in naivety." Alarms began to blare throughout the building. Through the window, Elena could see streams of Zephyrian fighters descending from the sky, their energy weapons carving swaths of destruction through the city. "You won't get away with this," Elena snarled, her shock giving way to anger. "Humanity will fight back." Zalthran laughed, a harsh, clicking sound. "With what? Your primitive weapons, your quaint alliances. Face it, Dr. Reeves. Your species was doomed the moment you reached for the stars." The building shook as explosions rocked its foundation. Elena could hear the sounds of panic and chaos erupting in the corridors outside. "Why tell me this?" she asked, her mind racing for a way out, for any advantage she could gain. "Because, my dear doctor, I respect you," Zalthran said, rising from his seat. "You, among all humans, showed the most promise in understanding us. It seems only fitting that you should understand the full scope of your failure." The door hissed open, and 2 Zephyrian guards entered, their biomechanical armor making them look more machine than alien. "Take her," Zalthran ordered. "She may yet prove useful in pacifying the human resistance." As the guards approached, Elena's training kicked in. She feigned compliance, then suddenly drove her elbow into the throat sac of the nearest guard. It let out a strangled wheeze, doubling over. Elena seized its weapon, a sleek, almost organic-looking pistol, and fired at the second guard. The energy blast caught the Zephyrian in its central eye cluster, and it crumpled to the floor. Elena turned the weapon on Zalthran, who raised his hands in a gesture that might have been surrender or merely amusement. "Impressive," he said, "but futile. Look outside, Dr. Reeves. Your world is already burning." Elena risked a glance out the window. New Geneva, the shining beacon of Earth's recovery and progress, was indeed in flames. Zephyrian ships filled the sky, their weapons reducing centuries of human achievement to ash and rubble. "This isn't over," Elena growled, keeping the weapon trained on Zalthran as she edged towards the door. "Oh, but it is," The ambassador replied. You just don't know it yet. Elena fired, the energy blast catching Zalthran in the shoulder. He hissed in pain but remained standing, not waiting to see more. Elena bolted from the room, racing through corridors filled with smoke and panicked government workers. She fought her way to the building's underground levels, where the emergency shelters and command centers were located. As she ran, she activated her neural implant, broadcasting on all secure channels. This is Dr. Elena Reeves. We are under attack. I repeat, Earth is under attack by the Zephyrians. This is not a drill. Initiate Protocol Omega. All military personnel to battle stations. All civilians to emergency shelters. She burst into the central command center, where chaos reigned. Screens showed similar scenes of destruction playing out across the globe and on humanity's extraterrestrial colonies. General Wei, the head of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, spotted her and waved her over. Dr. Reeves, what the hell is going on? Our systems are going haywire, and we're getting reports of attacks everywhere. Elena quickly relayed her encounter with Zalthran. They've been planning this from the start, General. We've been played. Wei's face hardened. Then we play back. Harder. He turned to his staff. Initiate the Lazarus Protocol. And get me a secure line to Luna Base. If Earth falls, they're our last line of defense. As the command center erupted into frenzied activity, Elena felt a mix of dread and determination settle in her gut. The Zephyrians had betrayed them, used their trust and openness against them. But if there was one thing Elena knew about humanity, it was their capacity to face impossible odds. They think they've won, she murmured, watching the screens light up with nuclear launches and orbital defense platforms coming online. They have no idea what they've started. The battle for Earth had begun, and with it, a war that would reshape the galaxy in ways no one, human or Zephyrian, could have predicted. The underground resistance. The abandoned subway tunnels beneath the ruins of Chicago echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps. Dr. Elena Reeves, her once pristine uniform now tattered and stained, led a small group through the darkness. Their breath misted in the cold air as they navigated the twisting passageways. How much further, Doc? Wheezed Sergeant Maria Alvarez, hefting a heavy pack of scavenged supplies. Not far now. Elena replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The sensor feeds show a Zephyrian patrol about 2 levels above us, but they shouldn't detect us down here. It had been 18 months since the fall of Earth. 18 months of hiding, scrounging, and desperately trying to survive. The Zephyrians' betrayal had been swift and devastating. Earth's major cities lay in ruins, its orbital defenses shattered, and its colonies cut off or subjugated. But humanity, as it had done so many times before, refused to go quietly into the night. The group emerged into a larger chamber, once a maintenance hub for the subway system. Now it served as one of many hidden outposts for the human resistance. As they entered, figures emerged from the shadows, weapons raised. Easy there, Elena called out. Copper Tango Whiskey. The challenge phrase was met with visible relief. Welcome back, Doctor, said a grizzled man stepping forward. Colonel Jake Harper, once a decorated officer in Earth's Space Force, now led this cell of the Resistance. What news from the surface? Elena's team began unloading their packs as she briefed the colonel. It's bad up there, Jake. The Zephyrians are stepping up their patrols. They're using some kind of new sensory tech that can detect human biosignatures. We barely made it past their cordons. Harper's face darkened. Damn. That'll make our supply runs even riskier. He gestured for Elena to follow him to a makeshift command center. But we've had a breakthrough of our own. Dr. Chen, show her what you found. Dr. Mei Chen, a brilliant cynobiologist who had been studying Zephyrian physiology, pulled up a holographic display. Elena, remember how we could never figure out why the Zephyrians wore those bulky suits even in Earth-like atmospheres? Elena nodded, leaning in to study the display. We assumed it was some kind of cultural taboo or physical necessity. Partly right, Mai said, her eyes gleaming with excitement. It's a necessity, but not for the reasons we thought. Look at this. She zoomed in on a cellular structure. Their biology is incredibly sensitive to certain types of radiation. Not the kind that harms us, but specific frequencies that are harmless to humans. Harper cut in. We've been testing a prototype device. It emits a focused beam of this radiation. In small doses, it seems to disorient them. In larger doses, it could incapacitate or even kill them. Elena finished, her mind racing with the implications. May nodded grimly. Exactly. And their suits. They're not just for protection. They're constantly regulating the Zephyrians' exposure to various environmental factors. If we could disrupt that regulation, we could turn their own biology against them. Elena breathed. Harper laid out a worn paper map on the table. We've identified a Zephyrian research facility here, he said, pointing to a location just outside the ruins of Detroit. Intelligence suggests they're working on improving their sensory tech. If we could get our hands on that, we could find a way to mask our biosignatures. Elena finished. Level the playing field a bit. It's risky, Harper warned. But if we pull it off, it could be the breakthrough we need to start taking the fight to them. Elena studied the map, her mind already formulating plans. We'll need a small team. In and out, fast and quiet. She looked up at Harper. I want to lead it. The colonel hesitated. Elena, you're too valuable to risk on a field operation. Your knowledge of Zephyrian psychology and culture is exactly why I need to be there, she interrupted. I know how they think, how they operate, and after what they did to Earth, to all of us. I need this, Jake. Harper held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but you take Alvarez and her team with you. I want our best watching your back. As they began to plan the operation, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A group of refugees was being ushered in, looking haggard and shell-shocked. They're from the Warren Street hideout, one of the guards reported. Zephyrians found them. These are the only survivors. Elena moved to help, her heart heavy. Every day brought more refugees, more tales of loss and narrow escapes. But as she looked around at the determined faces of the resistance fighters, she felt a flicker of hope. We're not beaten yet, she murmured, helping an elderly man to a makeshift cot. Not as long as we keep fighting. Over the next week, Elena and her team prepared for the raid on the Zephyrian facility. They pored over stolen schematics, practiced with the prototype radiation emitters, and drilled their infiltration plan until every move was second nature. On the night of the operation, as they gathered in the access tunnel that would lead them to the surface, Elena addressed the team. What we do tonight isn't just about gathering intelligence or stealing tech, she said, her voice low but intense. It's about showing the Zephyrians, and ourselves, that humanity is far from defeated. We are survivors. We are fighters. And tonight, we take the first step towards reclaiming our world. Sergeant Alvarez grinned fiercely. Damn straight, Doc. Let's go remind these alien bastards why you don't mess with Earth. As they ascended towards the surface, moving silent as ghosts through the ruins of their once great city, Elena felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The fate of humanity might well rest on the success of this mission, and others like it. The resistance had been born in the ashes of Earth's fall. Now it was time for it to rise, to strike back against their oppressors, and to rekindle the flame of hope in the hearts of every surviving human. The hunt was on, and humanity, against all odds, was turning from prey to predator. Operation Trojan Horse. The night air was thick with tension as Elena and her team crouched in the shadows of a crumbling building. Before them loomed the Zephyrian research facility, its sleek, alien architecture a stark contrast to the ruined human city surrounding it. Remember, Elena whispered, her eyes never leaving the facility. We go in quiet. The radiation emitters are a last resort. Our primary objective is the sensory tech. Sergeant Alvarez nodded, her face set in grim determination. Copy that, Doc. Team's ready. Just give the word. Elena took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. All right. Operation Trojan Horse is a go. Move out. The team moved swiftly and silently across the open ground, using the debris-strewn landscape for cover. As they approached the facility's outer perimeter, Elena activated the small device on her wrist. It emitted a low-frequency pulse, designed to create a momentary blind spot in the Zephyrian sensors. They slipped through the gap in security, hearts pounding. Once inside, they split into two groups. Elena, Alvarez, and two others headed for the main research lab, while the rest of the team moved to set up a distraction near the facility's power core. As they navigated the eerie, bioluminescent corridors of the Zephyrian structure, Elena couldn't help but marvel at the alien technology surrounding them. In another time, under different circumstances, she would have been thrilled to study it all. They reached the lab without incident, the Zephyrian overconfidence in their security systems working in the humans' favor. Elena approached a console, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Come on, she muttered, acutely aware of every second ticking by. Suddenly, the console lit up, and streams of data began flowing across the screen. Elena's eyes widened. This is it, she breathed. It's not just their sensory tech. This is everything. Their entire biological database. Alvarez kept watch at the door, her weapon ready. Great, download it, and let's get out of here. Elena worked feverishly, transferring the data to a quantum storage device. As the progress bar neared completion, an alarm suddenly blared through the facility. Shit, Alvarez hissed. They've detected us. The console beeped, signaling the completed download. Elena snatched the storage device and nodded to Alvarez. Time to go. They burst out of the lab, only to find their path blocked by a squad of Zephyrian guards. Their insectoid features were hidden behind their environmental suits, but their weapons were unmistakably pointed at the humans. Surrender, primitives. The lead Zephyrian clicked, its words translated by its suit. You cannot hope to. Its words were cut short as Elena activated her radiation emitter. The focused beam hit the Zephyrian square in its midsection. The alien let out a horrifying screech, its suit sparking and malfunctioning. Now, Elena yelled. Alvarez and her team opened fire, their weapons modified to penetrate Zephyrian armor. In the chaos that followed, the humans fought their way through the facility, the radiation emitters proving devastatingly effective against their alien opponents. As they neared the exit, a massive explosion rocked the building. The distraction team had done their job, overloading the power core and throwing the entire facility into disarray. They emerged into the night, running full tilt towards their extraction point. Zephyrian craft screamed overhead, searchlights sweeping the ground. Almost there, Elena gasped, clutching the precious data storage to her chest. Just as they reached the hidden entrance to the tunnel system, a Zephyrian energy blast struck the ground near Elena, sending her sprawling. The storage device flew from her grasp, skittering across the rubble. No, she cried, scrambling towards it. A Zephyrian soldier landed heavily between her and the device, its weapon trained on her head. Foolish human, it chittered. Did you really think you could? A burst of gunfire cut it down. Alvarez stood there, her weapon smoking. Not today, bug boy, she growled, helping Elena to her feet. They retrieved the storage device and dove into the tunnel entrance just as more Zephyrian troops arrived. The sounds of pursuit faded as they descended deeper into the earth, making their way back to the resistance base. Hours later, in the relative safety of their underground command center, Elena connected the storage device to their systems. The room fell silent as the data began to decrypt and display. My God, Dr. Chen whispered, her eyes wide as she scanned the information. This changes everything. Elena nodded, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten in the face of their discovery. It's not just their sensory technology. We have their complete biological profile. details of their environmental needs, even genetic sequences. Colonel Harper leaned in, his face a mix of hope and calculated strategy. Can we use this? Create a weapon? Elena hesitated, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders. We could, she said slowly. But I have another idea. She pulled up a specific section of the Zephyrian genetic code. Look at this. Their entire species is genetically engineered. They're designed to be perfect warriors, perfect conquerors. So, Alvarez asked, confusion clear on her face. So, Elena continued, a spark of inspiration in her eyes. They're also designed to be perfectly vulnerable to very specific things. Things their creators could use to control them if necessary. Understanding dawned on the faces around her. Harper voiced what they were all thinking. You're saying we could create a kill switch for the entire Zephyrian species? Elena shook her head. Not a kill switch. Something more subtle. A virus. One that doesn't kill them, but disrupts their ability to use their advanced technology. It would level the playing field, give us a fighting chance without resorting to genocide. The room erupted in discussion, arguments flying back and forth about the ethics, the practicality, the risks. Through it all, Elena stood silent, her mind racing with the possibilities and consequences of what they'd discovered. Finally, Harper raised his hand, silencing the room. We don't have the luxury of time for a debate. The Zephyrians will be on high alert after our raid. We need to act fast. He turned to Elena. Dr. Reeves, you have a go. Develop this virus. But he added, his voice grave. We keep this as a contingency. We're fighting for humanity's survival, but we won't lose our humanity in the process. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. As the others filed out, already preparing for the next phase of their resistance, she turned back to the data, losing herself in the complex dance of alien genetics. In the depths of Earth's ruins, surrounded by the last desperate hope of humanity, Elena Reeves began to forge a weapon that would change the course of the war, and perhaps the fate of two species. The Zephyrians had come to Earth expecting easy conquest. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technology or its weapons, but in its boundless capacity for innovation in the face of adversity. Operation Trojan Horse was complete. Now, the real battle was about to begin. The Great Counterattack. The makeshift lab hummed with activity as Dr. Elena Reeves hunched over a holographic display, her eyes bloodshot from endless hours of work. Beside her, Dr. Mai Chen manipulated complex molecular structures with deft gestures. There, Elena said, pointing to a sequence in the Zephyrian genetic code. If we target this regulatory gene, we can disrupt their ability to interface with their advanced tech without causing permanent harm. May nodded, making the final adjustments to their viral creation. It's ready for testing, she announced, her voice a mix of excitement and trepidation. Colonel Harper, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. How soon can we deploy it? Elena straightened, stretching her aching back. We need to run simulations, ensure there are no unintended consequences. A week, maybe two. Harper's face darkened. We may not have that long. Our scouts report increased Zephyrian activity. They're preparing for something big. As if on cue, the underground base shook with a distant explosion. Alarms blared, and Sergeant Alvarez burst into the lab. We're under attack. They'd found us. In the chaos that followed, Elena made a split-second decision. She grabbed the viral sample and a handful of delivery devices. We have to move. Now. The team raced through the tunnels as Zephyrian energy weapons tore through the earth above them. They emerged in a hidden vehicle bay where a group of resistance fighters was already prepping for evacuation. Where to, Colonel? Elena asked as they piled into a retrofitted transport. Harper's jaw was set in grim determination. Luna Base. It's our last secure facility, and they have the resources to finalize and mass-produce the virus. As their convoy sped through the ruins of Chicago, the sky lit up with the fires of battle. Zephyrian ships filled the air, raining destruction on the last vestiges of human resistance. "They're everywhere," Alvarez muttered, her hands tight on the vehicle's controls. Elena watched the devastation with a mix of horror and resolve. "They think this is the end," she said. "They have no idea it's just the beginning." The journey to the hidden spaceport was a harrowing game of cat and mouse. Using old sewers, collapsed highways, and the cover of burning buildings, they managed to evade the bulk of the Zephyrian forces. As they approached the camouflaged hangar containing their last functional shuttle, a Zephyrian patrol spotted them. Energy blasts rocked their vehicle, sending it spinning. "Everyone out," Harper ordered. "Make for the shuttle. Alvarez, cover our six." They abandoned the transport, running full tilt for the hangar. Alvarez and her team laid down suppressing fire, their weapons modified with the radiation technology to penetrate Zephyrian defenses. Elena clutched the viral sample to her chest as she ran, knowing that the fate of humanity might well rest in that small vial. A Zephyrian blast struck the ground at her feet, sending her sprawling. The sample flew from her grasp, arcing through the air. Time seemed to slow as Elena watched the vial tumble. Then a hand snatched it from midair. Dr. Chen grinned at her, helping her to her feet. "Can't let you have all the glory, Elena." They made it to the shuttle, Harper laying down covering fire as the last of the team boarded. The engines roared to life as Zephyrian forces converged on the hangar. "Hold on to something," the pilot shouted as the shuttle burst from its concealment, climbing rapidly into the atmosphere. Zephyrian fighters gave chase, their energy weapons lighting up the night sky. The shuttle jinked and weaved, its human pilot displaying a level of skill and unpredictability that the Zephyrian eye struggled to match. As they broke through the atmosphere, a massive Zephyrian battlecruiser moved to intercept them. It loomed before them, blocking their path to the moon. "We'll never make it past that thing," Alvarez said, her voice tight. Elena looked at the viral sample in her hand, then at the battlecruiser. An idea formed, crazy and desperate. "We don't need to," she said. "We just need to get close enough." Understanding dawned on Harper's face. "You want to release the virus now, without testing?" Elena nodded grimly. "It's now or never, Colonel. We won't get another shot at this." After a moment's hesitation, Harper gave the order. The shuttle adjusted course, aiming straight for the battlecruiser. Zephyrian weapons fire intensified, the shuttle shuddering under the assault. As they closed in, Elena loaded the viral sample into a makeshift dispersal device. "Here goes everything," she muttered, and released it into the battlecruiser's path. For a moment, nothing happened. The battlecruiser's weapons continued to fire, and Elena felt her heart sink. Then suddenly, the massive ship's lights flickered. Its weapons fell silent. "It's working," Chen exclaimed, watching the sensor readouts. "Their systems are shutting down." The shuttle shot past the now dormant battlecruiser, making a beeline for Luna Base. Behind them, the virus spread from ship to ship, carried on solar winds and transmission signals. As they docked at the hidden lunar facility, reports began flooding in from Earth. All across the planet, Zephyrian technology was failing. Their ships fell from the sky, their weapons went dark, and their communication networks dissolved into chaos. In the command center of Luna Base, Elena watched the holographic display of Earth with tears in her eyes. The Zephyrian invasion force, once so overwhelming, was now in complete disarray. Colonel Harper placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Doctor. You've given us a fighting chance." Elena shook her head. "We all did it. Every human who refused to give up, who kept fighting against impossible odds. This is just the beginning." As if to punctuate her words, a transmission came through on all frequencies. It was General Wei, broadcasting from a hidden bunker in the Himalayas. "Attention all human resistance forces." His voice rang out, strong and clear. "The enemy is vulnerable. Their technology has failed them. The time to reclaim our world is now. All units, Commence Operation Phoenix. I repeat, commence Operation Phoenix. Today, we take back Earth." A cheer went up in the command center, spreading through the base and across the communications channels. Humanity, broken but unbowed, was rising from the ashes. Elena turned to Harper, her eyes shining with determination. "What are your orders, Colonel?" Harper smiled, a fierce and joyous expression. "You heard the General, Doctor. We're going home. And this time, we're kicking those alien bastards off our planet for good." As Luna Base erupted into a flurry of activity, preparations already underway for the great counterattack, Elena allowed herself a moment of hope. The Zephyrians had come to Earth expecting easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, a species with an unbreakable will to survive. The battle for Earth was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, the tide had turned. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory. And Elena Reeves, along with every human who had fought and sacrificed, was ready to see it through to the end. A new galactic order. The skies over Earth roiled with the chaos of battle. Human fighters, cobbled together from salvaged technology and Zephyrian wreckage, darted between the hulking forms of disabled alien ships. On the ground, resistance forces emerged from hidden bunkers and underground cities, striking at the confused and vulnerable Zephyrian troops. Dr. Elena Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Phoenix, a hastily recommissioned orbital defense platform. Beside her, Colonel Harper directed the space-based portion of Operation Phoenix, coordinating with General Wei's ground forces. "Beta Squadron, flank that cruiser," Harper ordered. "Gamma Team, push forward to Sector 7. We need to secure that landing zone." Elena watched the tactical display, her heart racing with each human victory. The virus had worked better than they could have hoped, rendering the bulk of Zephyrian technology inert. But the aliens were far from defeated, falling back on more primitive weapons and their natural biological advantages. Dr. Reeves, a young lieutenant, called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian command ship. They're requesting to negotiate." A hush fell over the bridge. Harper turned to Elena, his eyebrow raised. "Well, Doctor, you're our expert on Zephyrian psychology. What do you think?" Elena considered for a moment, her mind racing through the possibilities. "It could be a trap," she said slowly. "But given their current situation, it's more likely they're genuinely seeking terms. The Zephyrians aren't used to failure. This defeat goes against everything they believe about themselves." Harper nodded grimly. "All right. Tell them we'll hear them out. But we're not halting our offensive." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the face of Zalthran. The once proud ambassador looked haggard, his scales dulled and his posture slumped. "Dr. Reeves," he clicked, his translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in his voice. "It seems we underestimated your species." Elena stepped forward, her face a mask of calm determination. "You did more than underestimate us, Ambassador. You betrayed us, tried to conquer us, and very nearly wiped us out." Zalthran's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress. We had no choice. Our empire demands expansion. It is our way." "Was your way," Harper interjected. "In case you hadn't noticed, your empire is in ruins. Your ships are dead in space. Your ground forces are being roundly defeated by the very primitives you sought to conquer." The Zephyrian ambassador seemed to deflate further. "What are your terms?" Elena had exchanged a glance with Harper before responding. "Unconditional surrender. All Zephyrian forces will lay down their arms and submit to human authority. You will share all of your technological and scientific knowledge, and you will assist in the restoration of Earth and all human colonies you attacked." Zalthran's facial tentacles writhed in agitation. "And if we refuse?" "Then we continue this war," Elena said simply. "We now have the means to neutralize your entire species' technological